Dang it, Cammy, there was a couple things of sugar in that thing I ate. Ugh.
You know what? You're just going to have to do the best you can with it, Nikki, and don't worry about a couple of bites of sugar when it was really unplanned. And, you just have to be able to do the best that you can.
The
Hi,
best that I
everybody.
can?
The best that you can, and that's what's going to count. We're talking today on Dr. Cammy Goes Keto with the wonderful Nikki from my sugar addiction group. And here's our shirts. No Sugar Nation. No Sugar Nation on School, SKOOL. I'll put the link in there for you guys to go check out No Sugar Nation. And we are talking today about just doing the best you can. And sometimes it's not going to be perfect. Sometimes you're not going to be able to be perfect. There's things that happen when you get, unintended ingestion of sugar in a sauce or a dressing or something where you've asked if there was sugar and they told you no. And then the first couple of bites, you knew there was sugar. So I think it's really important for us to have a discussion that talks about just doing the best you can and not beating yourself up when you're not perfect.
Yes, it's so important because I feel like a lot of women, we beat ourselves up if we can't do everything perfectly. And then we feel like, well, I'm a failure. And we go into the whole shame cycle. And then we want to find a different program because it didn't work. I couldn't work it. And then, rinse and repeat for 20, 30 years before we realize, the real issues and stuff. So, yeah.
Right. And I think it's really important too to realize that it's that, we can't be beating ourselves up about it all the time because especially if it's an accidental ingestion or even if you fell off plan and made a slip and went and ate something that's off plan food. I think doing a course correction right away as soon as you can is the best course of action. And, not saying, well, I already blew it for the day. I'm just going to eat. I've done that so many times. I mean, hundreds of times. How many times have I said, well, I've already blown it for the day. I'll just eat whatever I want for the rest of this day. And, 5,000 calories later, you know, I'm starting the next day with a new beginning, but if you just are able to nip that in the bud at the beginning of whatever it is, then maybe it's 1,000 calories, and you can,
Exactly.
and you can, do your emergency. Like I have an emergency plan that I need to pull out because I discussed it with my counselor and I'm not even sure what it says. But it's important to have an emergency plan. I know that one of the things that I would do right away is call somebody. I would get out of my mind and call somebody because I've had success with calling people and having them talk me off my cliff.
Yeah, definitely. And also just to pause and stop and like think things through. Because I know you and Mike have been working on this a lot and we teach it in our group as well. Like, let's play the tape all the way through. You know, let's say I ate something and I'm like, shoot, that tasted a little bit sweet. I bet you they didn't really truly have a sugar free sauce or dressing on that thing. And then if I go and say F it and then just like you said, eat everything I want for the rest of the day, then the next morning I'm going to wake up hungry, inflamed, weight will be up, puffiness will be up, all that will be up. And then if I were to play that through, well, what if I went back in time and I just said, oh, well, it has a little bit of something in there. They didn't intend on having it in there. I ate it. It is what it is. Let's just click back to our program and be on plan for the next meal. Probably wouldn't have been any harm, any foul. We just keep going, get back up, dust ourselves off as if we fell on the path, dust ourselves off, and then just keep going. We wouldn't fall in the middle of the path and just say, shoot, let me just lie in the dirt here because I'm already here and I'm a failure and I can't do it. No, we wouldn't do that. We'd just be like, oh crap, I fell. I got to get up. I got to dust my knees off, and I've got to keep walking. So I think having that resilient mindset and the end in mind is really good to keep us going and not to get too in a tailspin over those things that happen on the day to day.
Yeah, I think that's really a great idea to follow the thought all the way through to the end that, so that you don't go ahead and eat that food. And the other thing that I think is really important too is to realize that, we're going to make mistakes. I mean, we're going to have times where we're going to, just not be perfect. And when we do that, we need to be able to be like that resilience, like you were talking about, and get out of that rut right away as quick as you can, because that's going to help you in the long run, physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, all those things. The other thing that I think is really important too is to try to, prevent it by looking at cravings, right? Like we did that video where I said never negotiate with a craving. And it really hit one of our listeners really hard. I can't remember who it was in our program, but she's like, "Oh my God, I never thought about that. Like when you have a craving, you just don't negotiate with it. Like there's no negotiating going on here, guys. You know,
Exactly.
it, it's not on my food plan. It's not going to happen, because then that way you don't get yourself into the situation where you are struggling with wanting to eat something that has sugar or flour in it."
It exactly. And a lot of us, if we do violate our boundaries of what we plan and intend on eating, it does eat at us, pun intended, because we'll start to ruminate about it and obsess about it. And then it starts that whole dysfunctional thought process again, which we're trying to get away from. So it's just like, no, that's a boundary. That's a hard set rule for me. I know I can't mess with that thing and I'm going to stay away because I want to protect my peace.
Yes, yes, that's very important. And another thing that goes along the line, I think, with doing the best you can is not only looking at your food and what you're eating, but also looking at your emotional status and, what are the triggers that happen to you? It took me a while to figure out that every time I go to visit my mother, that's a big, emotional hit for me. And I have to be sure that, when I go visit her, that I'm in a good emotional place, that I've talked to somebody on the phone, that I've had some prayer, that I've eaten a healthy meal, that I'm and there's been times where I've had been planning to go visit her and just won't and ended up not going just because I wasn't in the healthiest of spaces before I got there. So I think that's really important too, is to evaluate your emotional situation. And because that's going to happen, your emotional system, at least for me, whenever I crave something to want to go eat something sweet, it's because something's happened to me emotionally.
Mhm.
And so when I can be assessing that and looking at that throughout the day and checking in with myself, then I prevent getting to the point where the cravings are going to come.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm the same way. Like my emotions can get in the way of me thinking straight. And I have to be careful because sugar makes me very irritable and even angry sometimes. So it's like when I'm having a craving, I think about that. And I used to call it the mean mommy. I would turn into the mean mommy and get real testy with my child because you know how it is when you're coming down from a sugar high, you're like a drug addict coming down from their high. And you just look like my mom used to say it's like a old hillbilly bear, and you're like, "Rah." And so it's like, I don't want to be like that to my little one, he doesn't deserve that. I don't want to, be like that to my husband or my friends or anybody. And it really helps me keep on the path and remember like, what are the fake emotions and what are the real emotions,
Yeah, I don't know that I really had those kinds of lows because I would just keep eating the food. I would just keep binging on, I would just keep myself high. I would get myself high. And as soon as I was starting to come down, I'd just get myself high again. Coming down 20 minutes later, get myself high again. And then eventually I got to the point where I wouldn't throw up my food because I just would never start that bulimia process. Because I knew that if I did, I was going in the wrong direction, not trying to get better, but getting sicker. So then I would just sit around in physical pain where I couldn't move for however many hours till, I woke up, the next day or whatever, and then had all of the things that you were talking about that, not only the physical stuff, but the inflammation and the pain and the not sleeping well the night before and the bloating and, the swelling but all of the emotional guilt and shame and all of those things that go with it.
hmm
So, just don't do it. That's what I wanna say, just don't do it.
Yeah.
Just,
Yeah.
stay the path.
But I caution, and I love this video, like, just do the best you can because a lot of the times we overcorrect, right? So it's like, I'm a piece of crap, and then we overcorrect, and then we want to do so perfectly to try and, you know, get back all this like time we lost or weight we've gained or whatever. So we go in the other direction of being too crazy and too obsessed with trying to be perfect that then that's unsustainable, right? We're women, we have jobs, we have families, we have, things to do. Even if you're retired, oh my gosh, you and my other girlies that are retired are so busy. So it's like we don't have time to, be all, every molecule and every carb and every this and every that. So we can overcorrect and swing the other way. And so like I feel like right in the middle is where the sweet spot is and where the balance is, where you feel really good about your food and you're doing well, but your thoughts aren't obsessed about it all the time. Because even though we want to get to our goal, we don't want to get to our goal and still have the mental obsession, right? We talked about this last time. Like that's part of the healing is like we want to be able to think, I'm going for a walk, I'm have this fun thing to look forward to with my friends and family, or I'm accomplishing my goals at work and getting, where I want to in my career. It's not to just be obsessed about food for the rest of our lives.
Exactly. And I think you bring up a really good point about that pendulum being in the middle because what we tend to, like I would tend to restrict myself the next day. Like after a binge, I would wake up and I'd say, I'm not going to eat all day long, and then that was ridiculous because then by 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I was snacking or eating and then something would sneak in that wasn't, you know, part of my food plan because I didn't have a food plan. And then I would just be off and running again that night. So I think, getting yourself back on track as soon as you can and realizing that you're not gonna be perfect and you don't have to be perfect, and that's okay. Just, do the best you can is good enough.
Definitely. Say I'm good enough, I do enough, I have enough, all those things. And like I said, the long-term goals that you have and the direction that you're heading, we're gonna be like an airplane that has to pivot a little bit, as we're going. There's turbulence here, then correct. And there's turbulence here, oh wait, there's a bird. And those are just little pivots that we're gonna have in life. We're human, right? And things are going to happen and we're going to have peaks and valleys and you know the times that are good are really good and we got to make sure we don't get too high, and then the times that are low, they might be pretty low and we might struggle a little bit. But if you just stay on the path, things will even out, and we'll get used to the middle, which as you and I know can get boring. But you fall in love with boring because boring is consistent and it's peaceful.
Yes, and then boring actually ends up being serenity.
Yes.
All right, everybody. Well, thank you so much for sharing this times with us and looking at, just doing the best you can and getting back on track as soon as you fall off as quickly as you can and reach out to others and use your different tools and journal and meditate and sleep and
And go to
pray and get over to a sugar addiction meeting. Do Mike's 30-day sugar challenge if you haven't done that yet, because a lot of people are having success with that too.
Definitely. Yes.
All right, guys, we'll see you next time. Take care.
Take care. Do the best you
Bye.
can.
Do the best you can for today. Bye.